Welcome to Radio Fixer's channel. Subscribe for upcoming videos. This is part 2 of repairing 1946 monitor radio, model TC56M. What the heck is that? Here. See this wire? Never saw something like that. It's like it's some type of resistor. Definitely burned out. I hope I don't need to replace all these wires because they're old. So I hate to do this, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and they're all over. This not big enough, this chassis. It's like a nightmare, this. So, but sometime, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? This is the list of things that we will cover in this video series. Test all tubes and replace the bad tubes. Check all resistor and replace the bad one. Check and replace electrolytic capacitors. Check and replace paper capacitors. Rewiring the entire radio chassis. Replace non-polarized electrical cord. Replace missing wood veneer and stain the radio cabinet. Reassemble the radio. Test the radio. Let's get started. I always document the tube location. Even it is under the radio, as you saw under the chassis, but I document it because later on it's much easier to find them, where the locations are. So I took already the one out. The best way to remove this, do not do this. You're going to damage it. Because you see these pens are very small. You can break this if you're not careful. Alright? So be very careful. And if you pull this out from here, it's going to come out of the base. Then it's going to be tons of problem. And tubes are getting harder and harder to find. So you hold on all the way in the base, all the way, to like this. It comes out like that. But you see where I'm holding? Here, not the glass. I was holding right here. Sometimes you need help with something like this, but be careful you don't crack the tube. So let me document this one. In this radio, when you check under the chassis, you see this little, there's like a pen here, right here. Each of them have that. That is mean start counting clockwise. So when this is start, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's how you read this in this radio. Each of them, they're different. You need to find out where the pen start. So since I don't have electronic background, and this is for those of you don't have electronic background. If you have an electronic background, you don't need to do this. You can cut everything, all the wires, and put it back together. But if you don't, this might help you. The reason I'm drawing here, I will show you later with a schematic. Sometimes a schematic drawing is not exactly what you're seeing here, which I will show you later. Since there is too many parts and wire goes everywhere, I cannot draw this in one page, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to look under the chassis, the tube layout. I'm going to draw this in 5 different pages. Then as soon as I remove one part, I'm going to document in proper page, so later on be easier to install. What I'm trying to accomplish, look at it like a layer of removal. What should I remove first? What's next, until be able to get to the wires and remove those, and then work backwards. Hopefully this makes sense. Alright, after I had the opportunity to check under the chassis, what I did is start documenting everything on the paper, all the connections. I call this page 1 for capacitors. So as I mentioned earlier, you know, each tube has a pen. You see I mark it here so I know where they are. This one is a different direction, so make sure first thing, you know, identify where the pens or the keys they call them. To give you example right there, to start, as I mentioned, number 1 pen, 2, 3, and it goes clockwise as we discussed. As you see, I put all the tubes, I put the volume control up there, and all the capacitor, I mark them. Of course, the 30 microfarad goes to pen 3 of tube 14Q7, 50 microfarad goes to pen 5, 35Y4. The negative side goes to pen 7 of 14A7. That's the first thing I removed. Then the second thing, I removed the power cord. One goes here, this is the volume control. Since it was in the angle, I put this in the top, and this is going to be the bottom. So here it's going to hook up to power cord, and also power cord you're going to hook up to pen 1 of 35Y4. Alright, so then I start drawing all the capacitors. Like this one goes from the power cord, pen 1, goes all the way to the bottom of the switch, 0.5 microfarad capacitor. So as you see, each of them I draw. I looked at under the chassis and I start drawing those. This is called first layer. So what the first layer means to me is the first things that I start taking out, and these are going to be the last to go back. Hopefully that makes sense. So here is interesting. In this tube 14B6, on pen 3 and pen 4, there is 2 resistors comes up. They connect to each other. One resistor is a 5 mega ohm, the other resistor 4.7 k ohm. And right there is a capacitors 0.022 is hooked up to pen 3 of 50A5. You see, so this is again, I document all the things. Like here we have another one from pen 7, which is a negative, is connect to the ground, is a 0.05. So I document all of them. Make sure double check, triple check, hooked up correctly. Like here, the volume control, to give you an example, I put the left side. This is where the volume control goes. You know, it has a 3 pen. This is the center that I put right. So the center, where this is very small capacitor, 0.0033, is hooked up to right here, to this pen 3. Let me know and show you what I did on a schematic, because it's a good idea to do that. Because you want to see what you have here, it matches schematic. So each of them, when I removed, after I draw here, so I went to a schematic and mark a schematic as well. I will show you, you know, what I did. The reason, again, I'm doing that, I want to make sure the schematic match this or vice versa. All right? Hopefully this makes sense. This capacitor, the negative, of course, is in the back, in the bottom. There is 3 wires comes out of it. Of course, the green, it says on capacitor, the green is 25 microfarad, which I check in the schematic. It's supposed to be 30 microfarad. And here, really should be just one capacitor, 50 microfarad. And my thinking is, you see, they put both line here, the blue and red. I'm thinking one of them, you know, maybe is a 20, another maybe 30. They were trying to get 50 here. So I'm going to take this out. I'm going to measure it just to want to know how bad it is. You know, I'm not going to reuse it. Of course, I'm going to put a new one. But this is how they wired it. You see, there's 3 wires comes out of capacitor here. See that? 1, 2, 3. That's why I always document. Even I have a schematic. As you know, schematics is sometimes very hard to read because the schematic layout is not like this, you know. Of course, this is a big mess, as you see. Look how many wire goes everywhere. I mean, everywhere. At least this schematic, I'm going to put it up here to see, is pretty simple drawing. They did a great job for drawing, but I prefer documented like this, then later on I know where they go, so there's no mistake can be made. Alright, so I'm going to unsolder here. Already took a few pictures of this to remember. Believe me, those are going to help you. If you're doing this as a hobby or you're new, you want to take tons of documentation because it's so hard to keep up. Especially, if you're not familiar with reading a schematic. Alright, let's unsolder this. Alright, all the wires are out. They run it under this. I'm going to be very careful, don't damage this when I remove it. Already unsoldered here too, because this was soldered to the old metal. See, this is the way it was. It was just soldered right here. I'll show you. It was soldered right here. I unsoldered this as well. Okay, this is out finally. I have to be very careful not damaging that, as I mentioned, because if this get damaged, it's going to be very hard to find something like this. We're trying to recreate it. Alright, now let's check a schematic, and this is a good thing to do for those of you just get started, or you don't have electronic background, you want to learn a schematic a little better. What I saw under the chassis, now I'm going to trace it down on a schematic. This is where the large capacitor is located. You see right here. This side is a 50 microfarad, the other side is 30 microfarad. The green is the ground, or we call it negative. It continue, if you continue the green, come all the way down here, all the way it hooked up to pin 7 of 14A7. That's what we saw under the chassis. The red 30 microfarad, if you continue this red line, you will see it hooked up to pin 3 of 14Q7. Now let's look at here in the bottom. Let me enlarge this so you can see it better. So the blue, or 50 microfarad, it hooked up to resistor 47 ohm. You remember that crazy resistor was burned out? You see how burned out it was? That's the resistor. Then it continue here, goes to pin 7 of 35Y4. This is what the schematic is showing. But let me show you what I actually saw under the chassis. You remember earlier I was telling you that sometimes schematic is a little different than actual what you see under the chassis? Let me show you that. Here on 50 microfarad, this blue line, if you continue this blue wire, they come here, they solder it to this pin 5, which is marked as NC. As you saw earlier, we discussed about that. It means there is no connection, so they use it as a junction. Here they solder that 1 watt resistor to this pin as well, and then that of course is run to pin 7 of 35Y4. That's what I was trying to share earlier. That's, sometimes what you see under the chassis is a little different than a schematic. So don't get overwhelmed. That's why I'm drawing this also on the paper, as you saw earlier. Yes, it is time consuming, but that's how you start learning a schematic. Hopefully this is going to help you. Now you see I'm going to have more space to work on. One thing I'm puzzled here, look what they did. They put this wire around this metal a few times. Why they did that? I see it's falling apart too. Let's not get overwhelmed. Let's focus on one thing at a time. Because when you look at something like this, holy moly, tons of wires need to be replaced. But if you think about it, you're going to change one at a time, at least you're not going to get overwhelmed. Or I don't get overwhelmed that way. Alright, let's take one thing at a time. That's the best way of restoring something. Let's test this. Just want to know if you hook it up to your multimeter or this, if that is charged, it's going to mask the equipment. That's why you want to make sure it's not charged. So what you do, you get the negative side, you go on the positive side like that to discharge itself. Okay, the green is 28 microfarad, and here capacitor says, see right here, say green 25, that's microfarad, 150 volts. Red is 30 and blue is 20. See, that's what they did, they put blue and red together to get 50. Okay, we are testing the red, and red's supposed to be 30. It's 35, so it is over. Wow, blue is very off. 3.3 nanofarad. The blue was all messed up. It's supposed to be 20 microfarad, 3 NF. It's not even microfarad. See, that's why you always replace the old capacitors. I don't know how old this is. Seems like it still has a price on it. Of course, the black one you say is a comment or negative. They always write that on capacitors. I don't know how this radio is working with this capacitor be that bad. Anyway, to share with you, I was planning to replace it anyhow, but I just want to know how bad they are. Alright, let's start removing some of these capacitors. As you see, they're all on top of each other. That's a crazy way they put it together. And so first thing what I usually do, take a picture where they being soldered. Then I unsolder that one. I go to the next one again, take a picture. It's pretty important to know which pen they hooked up. If you install them incorrectly, the radio will not work. So we're going to cut this one, and then here, see, this is out. Sometimes it's pretty hard to read what the value of capacitors are. The best way, get a lighter like this, heat it up quickly, then clean it off. See, now you can read it much better. This is 0.022 microfarad and 200 volts DC. You can read the capacitor. Now I can document that in two places. One on a schematic, another, on the actual drawing that I did of under the chassis to compare them. Here I mark some capacitors. Let me show you a couple of examples. Here there's a 0.05 macro capacitor. One side is soldered to the chassis. Other side is soldered to pin 7 of 14A7. That's what I saw under the chassis, so I'm drawing it right here. A couple of other examples here. Here there's 3 capacitors between these two tubes. On 14B6, on pin 1 and pin 2, there's a small capacitor here, which I'm going to put a picture up here for you to see. This is the size of capacitor is there. Is soldered to those 2 pins. Then the other capacitor is 0.022 microfarad with the pin again 2 of 14B6, and then also soldered to pin 6 of 50A5. Then from pin 3, there's a capacitor 0.0033 hooked up to the volume control. I suggest very highly to do this. I know it's a time consuming for those of you with no electronic background or just get started. This will help you to start understanding the schematic. Hopefully all these things going to help you. This resistor we were looking at, the color code is brown, red, silver. So let's key that into the database to see what's the value on that one. Alright, let's check this resistor, which I call it classic. Here the value was brown, red, silver. So the resistance is 1.2K or 1200 ohm. The minimum is 1.1K and maximum 1.3. So it should not be below that or above this. So now let's test the resistor. So we hooked up this to that resistor right there. Let's check the value. Is 1.184K. So this is in the range. All right, let's pursue. I'll be honest with you, it takes so much time to make these videos, editing, uploading, and make sure there's enough information that it actually makes sense, if you want to follow. At this time, I want to take the opportunity and thank my subscribers with their uplifting comment. You always encourage me to upload more videos, since this is just a hobby of mine. Again, I appreciate you. Enjoy all these videos, and you all have an awesome day. Take care. If you're interested to see more videos like this, feel free to subscribe to my channel, and you will be notified when a new video being uploaded. You have a great day.